I know we're going to talk about repair at some point, but there's a way I have, because my daughter's a teenager at the moment, and of course our parts come up and we clash sometimes, right? And when we're in the disconnect, we both tend to retreat into our own places,
Yeah.
you know. And then I have to work real hard to try to, because I want to come back, but my parts are like, you know, she's being disrespectful or whatever's triggered in me, right? But one thing I've learned to do is I will come and put my body next to her body, and I'll just say, I do not like being disconnected from you. Right? And I'm not yet able to go to anything other than that, but just naming that feels like we're on the road back, on the way back. Because I'm in a state right now inside of me and in relation to you that I do not like.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just, I find it a very, in my family anyway, it's just a way to begin to find a way back to each other, because, you know, when you've got that connection with your kid, when the love's flowing both ways, there's nothing like it.
Right. That's beautiful.
And the beauty of the connection isn't as black and white then, because here we are and our bodies are touching and I feel your warmth and I feel your lean into me.
Yeah.
And even though I might really have parts that don't like you, here we are.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
You hearing all this?
I have a colleague who said that was telling me that when she gets triggered by her kids, she'll say, and they're kind of, and she's starting to engage in a power struggle or in an argument, she'll catch herself and she'll just say, I love you too much to argue with you. And I was like, that's really
That's
lovely.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think that strategy would have been really helpful in my marriage. And I see a lot of other parents that really struggle with bringing two cultures together.
Yeah.
Because my ex-husband was from Africa. And so we both had a lot of different historical and cultural contexts that we didn't understand in each other. And I think about like people that are in multiracial relationships and how that impacts the child, you know, like you have all these different cultures colliding and coming together, and then the child has to try to pick between all of this and figure it out. But just saying, you know, I don't necessarily understand this, is different for me, but I'm still here with you. Like I'm connected to you, even in our differences. That just feels really powerful to be able to say, you know, we don't see eye to eye or we're not understanding. And to be able to share that not only with your partner, not only with your child, but as a family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's this beauty that I've found in my own work when I follow my trailhead and I alleviate those exiles. There's so much more playfulness available. There's so much more that I get to enjoy about my husband, about my children. Even if it's not perfectly on the topic of what we were talking about, it's, oh, there's more of me here. There's, you know, like those exiles now, they've been loved, they've been cared for.
I also think that it's really hard to be vulnerable. You know, the protectors are kind of natural, and as much as some of us want to push our protectors away, or you know, push parts of us that we don't like away, like there's just a side that I just rather not have. It's important to have those. You know, vulnerability is underneath that, but it's important to embrace the parts that we don't like, to be able to witness and experience that vulnerability that you talked about, sharing with one another, and you know, being able to be more present.
Yeah, I love that too, because I think it highlights that element of the parts aren't bad.
Right.
The parts are doing the best they can with what they have, and sometimes our kids do need to have those parts that step out in front and do what they need to do, and then they get to reconcile with their parts as well. So.
Yeah, I think one of the gifts of this is, as you were saying, Joanne, if there's a part of me that doesn't like it, if I don't like that part, that's got to be another part, right? And so if I can see that one, okay, you don't like that part, you don't have to, right? And they don't like each other, but I don't have to be either of you.
Right.
I can get both of you, and then I'm back in the place of peace, right?
Right.
Okay, you don't like that one, you don't have to. Is it okay if I get to know it? Okay, thank you.
As you were saying that, it just made me think about how the internal work we're doing with our parts is a reflection of then how we're able to see our children and allow them to be witnessed and to witness them. You know, that when we're able to do that with ourselves, we're much more able to do that for our children and witness them rather than, you know, our parts getting activated. So, yeah. It's a huge.
With myself, recently having three teenagers in the house, two of them 18 now, but it's almost like a progression for me where afterwards I would reflect and notice, oh, that was a part.
Mm.
And then I would realize, wow, that part hurt her or hurt him by saying those things. And I would apologize. And I was in that cycle for a while, and now I'm at a place where I notice the parts as they're building and as they're rising, I can say, oh, and I can almost say, I got this. You don't need to. You don't need to take over. I'm good. Like I could be here. And then that part just never fully actualized out of my mouth. It just kind of. And I noticed my kids will just. You'll see them, like my son. If I let a part come out, he's just like, he's at that stage right now. He's 14, and he's like, he's rolling his eyes and he's mumbling really negative stuff under his breath. But if I could just keep that down, he's like, hey, Pops. And I'll even say, hey, do you mind if you could help, with the dishes? Can you help us out? He's like, oh, sure. But if I'm like, why aren't you I told you. And then it's like, slam. So it's like if we can just see it coming and just kind of head it off at the pass, and even like, I need to go to the bathroom. And just say, just let me be here with my son or my daughter. You don't need to take over. I know you want to help. I know you want to make this happen. I know you want to make them respect me or do whatever you need to do. But it's okay. I got it. And then you just can stay chill and just be. And then it's almost like, yeah, I'm agreeable because you're being cool. But when you're a jerk, I don't want to work with you.
Right.
I mean, why would teenagers? They don't want to work with anybody who's being a jerk. I mean, that's part of finding their own identity. Like I don't put up with that. So.
And it makes me think, I have a 14-year-old daughter too, and just the other day I picked her up from school, and she was telling me, I asked her how her day was, and she was telling me something, and it was kind of minor, and I had a part that came up, and it was totally my part that said, well, if that's the biggest problem you have, that's first world problems, and then you're doing good. And I could just see her kind of deflate and shut down. And so I caught myself, and I was like, and I just said, I'm really sorry. That was kind of a jerky thing to say. And then I just said, I hear that was really frustrating for you, that, that really upset you. And then all of a sudden she kind of opened up and started sharing more about other things that happened. So our responses and my ability to kind of own, like we were saying earlier, kids are so forgiving. But my ability to own my own part in the moment, because we're not always going to catch it as it's rising, and it might even be a day later before I sometimes catch my parts, but it's never too late to go back and repair, and that's the beautiful thing about parenting.
I'm really glad you named that, because for me it's been an ongoing practice of first noticing that I have parts,
right?
And then finding ways to like them all, even if they don't like each other, and then parts of me saying, you're making this shit up. And then, it's been a process from there to, and I hear what you're saying, because I have some of that too. I have a part that gets really angry when someone tells me to leash my dog in the park, right? And I have another part that says, well, maybe they're scared of dogs. It is a bylaw, right? The dog should be on leash, the reasonable part. But the angry one feels like someone's trying to control it, right? And there's a young part that hates being over-controlled, right? So once I got that, so it used to be the angry part would just take over, right? Don't you know your dog should be on a leash? Oh yeah, somehow I've hit 50 and I never noticed that. Thanks, pal. Right? Because then I'd keep walking, and then this other part, because then it's calmed down, and there's a person, well, that wasn't very nice. They're probably scared of dogs. You're meant to be a therapist. You're meant to understand people. What's wrong with you? So now I can feel the part with the sarcasm coming up, and I'm like, I've got this. And if you take over, the other one's going to beat us up for an hour. It's like, can we call them names? No. So, and it comes up, I can feel it on the left side. It's this firefighter anger, right? It's like, we're not going to do that right now. And it's like, okay, thanks. But it took a while to get to that place, especially with the angry ones. Right. Because they are righteous, they want to take over, they
That's
have
Yeah.
So I don't want people to take away, anyone that's watching this, an expectation that they should automatically be able to go to this place of calm.
Right.
It's a process, very much so.
Yeah, and I think part of the process is when we do this work, we're building a self to part relationship. Like we're building a relationship with this part, and when the part begins to trust you, then it won't take over. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
that anger part of you must know you're competent, you can handle this.
Yeah.
Because if it didn't, its job is to protect and to help, it would probably just, right, take
Yeah.
over and say, but in that in that work that we do of letting these, like really being there for parts, it's almost like that trusted teacher walking onto the playground when the kids are like, oh, thank God, he's
Yeah,
here, she's
yeah,
here.
yeah.
That when self can show up, then, but I find that they will take over until you take the time to build that relationship
Yeah.
and to build trust that, yes, you can manage this.